to finish up, we'll spend a little bit of time cleaning up our facial rig. So this process involves checking our weights, making sure we're satisfied with how everything deforms. Keep in mind that if you wanted to tweak your weighting, you'd want to do that for both the base and deform head. So the easiest way to do this is to adjust the weighting on the base head and then recreate your deform head. And then next, following that, we'd also check our morphs. So if I were to go in and select the head control and start to just take a look at how each of them have turned out, this is great. Now remember, if we want to go in and tweak these, we'd want to load in both of our morph tags. So I'll just go in and unlock the mesh. We can select the tag tied to the base head, double click on the one tied to the deform head, and then we'd go to edit mode and crank up the weight on both that we'd like to tweak. And then once we're finished, we'd switch back to animate mode. There's some cases where that would not be needed. It's mainly for areas that deform sections that are also influencing the objects that we've tied together with the mesh deformer. Okay, great. Well, once we've checked those things, we can then go in and start to prohibit movement on axes that should not move. So here's an example of what we'd use the protection tag for. Our main node at the top, this is not our global move node, this is just to store things within. So with this selected, we can go ahead and add a protection tag to this. And now, if we were to go ahead and select the protection tag just to take a look, we cannot move, scale, nor rotate this object. So that just adds clarity to our control rig. For the eyes, let's go ahead and find those. We can add a protection tag here, and we will unlock position only. So let's take a look at this. If we were to go to object mode when we're ready to animate, notice we can go in and move this however we'd like. However, we cannot rotate nor scale this object. You can see how it's grayed out. Alright, so that's just an idea. And I'd highly recommend doing that for your other controls, except for the head control. Remember, we've created a space switching feature, so just to make sure everything functions properly, we do not want to go in and add a protection tag to lock down the position of this object. But remember, keep in mind that we used a constraint, so we can't move this anyway. We can go in and rotate it if we'd like, but the position is taken care of for us, so we're good to go there. All right, beautiful. So next, we can then start to think about keyframe selections. This is just another way to add clarity to our rig. When we use keyframe selections, only the channels of those objects receive animation, the others will not. So for our upper jaw control, we can add a keyframe selection to the position and rotate channels. Let's go ahead and tear this attributes manager off, and then we'll go ahead and move it over to the side. Selecting both groups, position and rotation, we can right click and choose animation, add keyframe selection. Again, so both of these will receive animation, we can record safely on them, and scale will never be touched. If you'd like to remove this, you can just go ahead and right click and choose remove keyframe selection. Alright, so we'd want to do that for the rest of our controls. And then we can go ahead and add a selection object for all of our control objects. Now, keep in mind we have only been working with splines for our controls. So what's great is that we can go ahead and head over to Filter and choose Show None, and then turn on Splines. And now we can grab our Rectangle Select tool to grab all of our animation controls and create our keyframe, or excuse me, our selection object that way. So there it is right at the top. We'll rename this to cell obj underscore controls 01, and then we'll need that stored underneath our mail node. So everything gets stored underneath, and it's nice and clean, nice and tidy in our objects manager by doing so. Then at that point, you can just go back to filter and choose show all. All right, great. Well, now we'll do a little bit of cleanup work. We can go to our objects to hide layer. We can go ahead and hide that. We can hide our bone objects. We can go ahead and make sure that our face is locked down. Now, when we do that, before doing so, it's a good idea to make sure that if you've added any HyperNerbs nodes to any of those objects tied to this layer, that you go ahead and enable them. Great. And then you can go ahead and just lock your layer down. All right, so everything in the end looks nice and smooth. Let's go ahead and check here. Those layers have been hidden. We want to leave our controls layer alone, as well as the face layer. So that means that, again, going to object mode, we can now start to animate the face, and we're just fine. As far as your hierarchy here, feel free to go in and start to collapse things. You can collapse your model group, your global move group. You can go to joints, start to collapse that, and then the controls group. Notice how clean everything is and organized. Beautiful stuff. And that's about it. So we've learned some really cool things throughout this course. We've learned how to not only create a cool face rig, but we've learned techniques that can be used on any rig that we build. So if you need to, feel free to just go through any lessons that you may not have been too clear about, and just make sure you have the concept down so that you can go ahead and use that same technique for something even more creative. And that's what it's all about, coming up with these different techniques that we can use to help animators out, and that will help us to work more efficiently. And with that said, again, that's the end of this course, and thank you for watching.